The iPod Touch is the most popular music player and media device in the world, and has been for quite some time. Over the years since it was launched in 2001, the iPod has sold over 300 million units worldwide across the range. It's been steadily updated over the years, and there's been new and added features. We've got the new iPod Shuffle, which brings back the controls. We have the new iPod Nano, which is the small multi-touch version. We have the iPod Classic, which has been with us for quite some time, and the iPod Touch. Now, what I'm covering is this isn't a video on news. This is just mainly my opinions, and I want to know what you guys think as well, because I want to know what the future for the iPod holds. Obviously, the iPhone and the iPad are sort of the most popular Apple media devices at the moment, really, because other than the iPod Touch, the iPod range is, consistently going downhill. It's shown in the figures that the iPod sales are reducing and reducing and reducing. iPod Touch sales are the only real thing keeping it afloat. So it also brings the question, what can happen to the iPod line now in terms of technical enhancements? I mean, this year, in October 2011, normally every September, Apple hold a big event about music, and they always update the iPod Touch line and the whole iPod line. There was a new iPod Shuffle, like the small candy bar version with no buttons. The old iPod Nano, if you remember, with the click wheel and the curved screen. The slightly older iPod Classic with different hardware configurations, like in terms of memory, and the older, fatter iPod Touch without any cameras. Now, for this year, what they did to the iPod line in terms of updates is, well, nothing really. The iPod Shuffle stayed exactly the same. The iPod Nano, what they did is they said the new iPod Nano, and all that changed on this device this year is you're allowed to now have full screen buttons. You can also have new clock faces, and there's a slightly better fitness application due to a slightly changed sensor in the device. Now, pretty much all of these things came to the iPod Nano owners already from the year before, which is still the same device technically, that contained most of these updates anyway. So, in what way this is a new device, I don't really know. It's not. It's the same iPod. At the end of the day, it's still the 2010 Nano, really. The iPod Classic, this hasn't been updated for 2 years. It's received a few price drops, but and it used to be only available in 120 gig configuration, but they updated it a few years ago, and it's been exactly the same ever since. And everyone has said that the iPod Classic, it wasn't updated in 2010. Steve Jobs came out on stage in the 2010 keynote, and he said, "I'm updating every single one of the iPods in the iPod line today." And yet there was no mention of the iPod Classic throughout the whole keynote. So that begs the question, is it going to be killed off? But no, it wasn't. It's still been here, and through the next year, which is obviously this year, October 2011, it's still here after that update, even though there wasn't really an update. And then, of course, the iPod Touch. Now, this was updated last year with a front-facing camera, the amazing Retina display, the rear HD recording camera, a new amazingly slim design, gyroscope, game center, FaceTime, iOS 5, the lot. Now, the only thing that has changed with the iPod Touch this year is that it's ever so slightly cheaper by about £10 in this country, or £20, and it comes in white. There's no hardware changes whatsoever, and it also ships now with iOS 5 pre-installed, which you could update to anyway. Now, I'm not complaining about this because the iPod Touch is an amazing device, but my question to you guys, and to myself, and anyone out there, is the fact that they didn't update it purely because there's not much left they can do? Or is it because the iPod line is nearing the end of its life? Now, we've got lots of other media devices that are a lot cheaper, or, some of us, for me, I have an Android phone. I did use a Palm for some time, but I've switched back to a budget Android handset, and I've updated it to 2.3, and I run Spotify on it, and I've got all the Android apps, so technically, really, I don't really have a need for an iPod Touch, because I have all my music on Spotify, which is streams to my phone, I have all my apps, and I have a camera and all that built in, so why carry around two devices? And I think that's becoming the case for a lot of people now, especially as the new cheaper iPhones are coming out. I think that it makes a lot less sense to get an iPod at this time, unless you really do have a big extensive MP3 library like an iTunes library or something. And some people do, but still we are seeing a decline in iPod sales, and I think that is one of the reasons there. Excuse me there. But as I was saying, what more can be done? The iPod Touch has the Retina display. I know it's not the same IPS display for cost reasons, but essentially a Retina display means put it any higher resolution and there's no point because our eyes can't see it. It's technically the best possible display you can put on the device. There's nothing you can do to get the display better except for make it IPS technology and possibly increase the contrast ratio or brightness or some ridiculous specification like that. It's LED backlit, so it's energy efficient. It's the best we've got for now until OLED. And it's a resolution where it's so good your eye can't distinguish the pixels. So there is literally no more you can do to upgrade the screen in this device. Cameras, fair enough. You can probably slightly upgrade the optics in the cameras. They've proved that they can do that with the iPhone 4S. So eventually maybe the camera will be updated to a slightly more high resolution camera. But again, other than that, what more can be done? It's got the A4 processor in it. Maybe they can upgrade it to a dual core. I don't really see why that would be necessary for what it runs. Upgrade the RAM maybe. You know, maybe just these small specification updates. But overall, as a device itself, to hold, to look at, there's nothing more you can do. And you know, they insist on keeping the screen size 3.5 inch because that is the, you know, they don't want fragmentation such as on Android. I read an article about this recently. They don't want fragmentation, and they say that keeping the screen size the same means all apps are the same size and everything works out great. And that's fair enough. I think it's a good size. But as I say, there isn't really anything you can do to improve it now. And also, if you look at how slim the device is, I don't know what I can do here. iPod Touch. If I then go to, I don't know if there's a gallery option or something. Probably not because they've changed the site. But, you know, I mean, still you can see that it is an amazingly thin device. And you can't really get it much thinner. I mean, you could probably make it a tiny bit thinner. You could probably improve the battery a little bit. But it's going to come to a point where it's pretty much impossible to improve on it. And other than software, and software updates are available to users of older devices anyway. So there was all these people saying, oh, why didn't you update the iPod line, it got no love, etc, etc. But is it just purely because there's nothing that can be done? Obviously the iPod Classic, they don't want to kit that out with all the latest technology because some people like it the way it is with the hard drive format. The iPod Touch, not much that can be done. Once again, they added the colour to make it a bit more variation and lowered the price. Everyone loves a price drop. iPod Nano, the update was a bit silly really because you can get the software update for the older generation. Personally, I kind of prefer the older the iPod Nano anyway. With the I own a 4th generation device which has the brushed metal finish and the curved display and the click wheel. I even preferred that over the newer one which had like the plastic glossy finish. I'm not sure why. It's just the way it was for me. But again, there is, you know, limited things that Apple can do to improve the iPod line now, and as they do improve the iPod line, it's still becoming increasingly, you know, on the downhill run. It's not as popular due to the masses of Android handsets, the masses of new iPad and iPhone owners. So I'd like to hear your thoughts about this. What do you think is going to happen to the iPod line? Do you think they will change anything? Do you think there will be a major overhaul next September? Or do you think it will start following the iPhone update schedule like it did with this year? Maybe in June or July. Or maybe it will go back to September and we'll see some significant updates. Or maybe eventually it will get to the point where they just start killing them off one by one. We've seen what they've done with the Mac line. The MacBook no longer exists. There is no such thing. You can buy them pre-owned, you can buy them on clearance, and you can buy them refurbished. But you cannot buy a new MacBook. It's either the MacBook Air or the MacBook Pro. And maybe this is the sort of drastic decision they're going to make when it comes to one of the iPods. Probably the Classic first, but we shall see. So please guys, this has been a fairly long-winded video, but I just wanted to share my thoughts on it. I haven't done a technology video in a while. I've been doing my Minecraft series. But I'd like to know your thoughts on this, what you think, and if you think that I've made some logical, thoughts on the situation. It'll be interesting to see their strategy now, now that it's been taken over by Tim Cook, and I'll be interested to see what happens in the future. Thanks for watching, guys.